Venga, siéntate aquí, siéntate.
¡Tía! ¿Qué pasa?
Jimmy, quedaos aquí, no hagáis ruido y no os mováis.
Yes. It's seriously, I love the Teletubbies. So I have history with the Teletubbies. When I did the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games in London, when we showed the press the set in 6 months in advance, they all accused me of portraying England as Teletubbies land. But they said it in a way that was really derogatory. And I was like shocked. I said, I quite like Teletubbies. I love kids' entertainment. Because I've seen a lot of it. I have 3 kids and I brought them up, and so I've watched a lot of television with them. So I have history with that. But we were looking, seriously, we knew doing this film, we knew we had to have an opening that would be compelling enough to stop the studio, Sony, asking us for a recap at the beginning. You know that terrible previously in 28 days later, and you'd see they would want that, and we didn't want that. We wanted this to kind of stand alone as a film. So we thought, let's do a scene from the time of 28 days, that film, that wasn't in the film. So we picked this idea, and Alex had this idea of this character in it, who you see, who you then meet at the end. And more importantly, the Teletubbies imagery, although at the beginning it's used for innocence, horrifically destroyed, it also hallucinates in that child's mind into something else, which is his gang at the end, when they arrive at the end of the movie. So it has a serious purpose, and it appears again in the second film, in Nia DaCosta's film. There's an extraordinary scene about it in Nia DaCosta's film. So it's kind of got a real purpose, and it's wonderful to make fun of pop culture, you know, in all its guises. Some people like, some people don't. Teletubbies everybody sneers at, but I quite like the Teletubbies. I was going to have them appear at one point as real characters, but they appear at the end, like you see them, as Jimmy's gang.
Up and down again. Don't. Look at what's in front of you.
So I used Young Fathers are from Edinburgh, which is where Trainspotting 1 and 2 was set. So they come from those estates in Edinburgh. So I feel kind of umbilically connected to them, even though they were too young. In fact, they weren't even born when we were doing the first Trainspotting. But I've loved their music, and there's a folk in it. But it's not just folk. It's kind of Irish folk, African folk. It's drawn from many different places, and they're like some weird, hardcore version of the Beach Boys from an industrial estate from a neglected estate in Edinburgh. So they're remarkable musicians, and it was a huge risk asking them because they'd never done a film before. And the first film has very celebrated music from John Murphy, but we wanted to do something different that stood alone, that was its own film in a way, you know, so it's nice to take a huge risk like that. And thankfully they did a wonderful job for us, yeah.
Up and down again. Don't. Look at what's in front of you.
Well, they do now shoot. Smartphones shoot at 4K, which is really fine for a screen, and that allowed us to choose the format. The fact we had enough resolution meant we could use the format we wanted to use, which is a widescreen, because we wanted the landscape. Obviously, 28 years after humanity has disappeared, you're going to use a landscape format because you want to show those pictures of nature. It also creates a problem, because if you're going to show humans in that landscape, nobody else has been there in 28 years. So you can't have the crew moving through with all their equipment and, you know, everything. So we use phones and drones, lots of different cameras, but all lightweight, so that we could leave very little footprint. and therefore have a virgin landscape in which to make our mark on. And again, it's the same purpose. It's to try to make an original film. We know that the urban landscape, the deserted streets of London, was very impressive for people in the first film. We wanted to do something quite different in this. So it was to use nature and the outdoors and daylight. Most of it's in daylight, the film. And that's challenging because scary stuff is usually night. That's the best time to do your scary stuff, is often night time. But it was wonderful to have that challenge of using daytime. Again, the phones are great for that. Oh, and the panoramic. We also allowed us to set up these special rigs that kind of allowed us to track around the back of or in front of creatures of the infected at different times for some of the violent material and to surprise with that as well. Yeah.
The game that's known to stars in the world. 7, 6, 11, 5, 4, 17, 32 the day before.